Proteus Leadership proudly presents the Let's Go, Let's Grow podcast with Des Penny, founder of Proteus Leadership.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Let's Go, Let's Grow podcast. I'm Des Penny and today I want to talk about the integrity factor. 20 years ago, our business, Proteus Leadership, was young and in need of an injection of funds, just like most small businesses. And we were called to submit a proposal for a large organisation to train thousands of their staff nationally. Not only was this an invitation exciting, but it was also the one we'd been waiting for, as it would increase our business probably tenfold. And some would say it was a lifesaver and a no-brainer, but some things are not always as they look. And full of hope, my colleague and I went to meet their senior management team and to have final discussions about the program. At this meeting, it was made very clear to us that we were the people they wanted and that we should start the process of preparing to roll this initiative out across the country. This was a dream come true. As my colleague and I drove away, we should have been buzzing with excitement, but both of us felt that something just wasn't right. They were a very reputable organisation, but the reasons for training their teams just didn't seem to be in sync with us. And to their amazement, and ours for that matter, on returning to the office we immediately called them and turned down the business. The initial response by them was, "How dare you turn us down?" and that we would never work in their industry again and would be blacklisted. Well, within weeks a scandal emerged in their business and was covered on the front page of every newspaper nationally. A scandal so large that had we proceeded, not only would we have lost their business and not been paid, but it could very well have taken our business down with it. That day we said no was one of the most important business decisions we ever made. And we still stand proud of the fact that integrity overruled short-term gain. So what was it that made us say no? Because it certainly was very tempting from a business viewpoint, and in the eyes of others, saying yes was a no-brainer. But we said no. Well, I believe it was an inbuilt integrity that had developed over a long period of time that showed its face when it was needed. It protected our core values and sense of what was right. Or you could just say that we trusted our gut. I'm sure that many of you listening have experienced similar situations and acted as we did. But I also know that there are many people in workplaces right across this country that do not operate that way. They choose the easy road every time, no matter the long-term consequences or the damage it causes to others. So why is it that unethical people always seem to be so successful? Well, I guess that depends on what you measure success against. Often their success is short-lived, and even if it isn't, there is usually a trail of burned relationships behind them. Jon Huntsman Sr., author of the book Winners Never Cheat, said, "There are no moral shortcuts in the game of business or life. There are basically three kinds of people: the unsuccessful, the temporarily successful, and those who become and remain successful. The difference is character." I love that. The difference is character. But how do you know if people have character? Well, Warren Buffett said it best. In looking for people to hire, look for three qualities: integrity, intelligence, and energy. And if they don't have the first one, then the other two will kill you. How many people do you know like this? Because they're smart or an industry expert or work hard on their job, does not mean in itself that they have integrity. In fact, in many situations it can be the foil that helps them get away with so much, because they are perceived to be energetic achievers. But integrity is not about what we achieve, but rather how we achieve it. When I considered Warren Buffett's words, suddenly people made complete sense to me. There were people I had known and still do know that I couldn't quite put my finger on what wasn't right. People I even liked but could never really give them my 100% trust. People I knew who were achieving so much, and yet their legacy didn't last. Everything crumbled when they weren't in control. This now made sense to me, and I wasn't wrong or negative to feel the way I did about them. It was the integrity factor that was disturbing me, not the other two. But the other two made me feel that I couldn't question their integrity. So I set out to find what integrity really was, because if this could explain so much about how I was feeling about certain people, I wanted to know more. The first thing I needed to understand was exactly what integrity meant. And the dictionary says it's a possession of firm principles, completeness, wholeness, and honesty. Note that it doesn't say weak or submissive or compromising, or that we can't be assertive, entrepreneurial, or innovative. Rather, it is all about how we do these things. Oprah Winfrey, when asked what integrity was, replied, "Real integrity is doing the right thing, knowing that nobody's going to know whether you did it or not." And what she was really saying here is that our decisions should not be determined by who's watching or only by what we can gain, but what is the right thing to do. Because a lifetime of making the right decisions defines who we really are and who we become. So integrity is putting someone else's needs before yours while not compromising what you believe is right. Integrity is also about how much effort you put into things. For example, your job. Lazy people lack integrity. People who are constantly criticising and blaming lack integrity. People in the workplace who believe that they're owed a living and are entitled to have the company do everything for them lack integrity. It's just that simple. People who would take you into their trusts and then take what they've gotten from you and use it against you, they lack integrity. People with excessive egos lack integrity, and so on. As leaders, we make decisions all the time. Imagine if doing the right thing and not the popular thing became our new decision-making filter. You see, it's not about being perfect. It's about doing what we know is right, not just what pleases others. And the disease to please is possibly at pandemic levels in our workplaces right now. Well, there is a cure for that. And the cure is start doing what is right. After all, it is a choice. You know, there's much debate currently about whether integrity can be taught or not. I believe it can be taught, but not through words, rather through example. You can tell people what it is and how they can achieve it, but you can't make them have it. That will be determined by the choices they make, and people learn integrity by watching others live it. Author and blogger and senior business growth executive Alvaro Vaselli said this about where he learned integrity. "My father is a 75-year-old man who still works every day at his own accounting firm in Brazil. He taught me integrity. I don't ever remember having a lecture from him on integrity, nor do I remember having a particular class on integrity. What I do remember from him are numerous displays of doing the right thing when no one was watching, day after day, year after year. That's where I learned integrity." And I just love that story because it really sums up what integrity is. It's not taught through a book, it's taught through example. And that's why parenting is so important. That's why it's so important that we have great teachers in our education system and they are properly trained and supported. And that's why leaders must also pass the integrity test if they are to have meaningful impact and be a positive influence on those they're serving. If you want to change people's behaviour, stop telling them what to do and show them by modelling a new way. Display values and qualities which, when lived, are the birthplace of integrity. We can't force people to live them, but we can inspire and lead by example. Wow, what a challenge parents, teachers, leaders, politicians, and every one of us has who are listening to this podcast. Have you ever worked with somebody who you thought lacked integrity? There was just something not right. Like our business deal, you feel it in your gut. You might even like them, but you don't completely trust them. Do you know someone like that? I'm sure you do. We've been told for years to follow our gut without realising that there's actually science behind it. Neuroscientists' findings have uncovered that we have complex and functional neural networks, our brains, not just in our heads, but also in our heart and in our gut. These nervous systems display amazing levels of memory and intelligence. Furthermore, there's growing evidence that these brains are deeply involved in the control and processing of numerous functions, including processing information and making decisions. So no longer can leaders rely solely on the competencies dominated by their head alone, and thank goodness, but in fact all three brains need to be functioning. And unless we have all three in sync, then we limit ourselves in the decisions we make and in the way we live. So what is the function of our three brains? Well, without the head intelligence, decisions will not have been properly thought through or analysed. Without the heart intelligence, there will not be sufficient values-driven emotional energy to care enough to act. And without the gut intelligence, there will not be sufficient attention to managing risks or enough drive and willpower to execute our decisions. As a result, for people to live with real integrity and to make great decisions and get the best results, all three intelligences must be in sync. And using our three brains is powerful, but it must be something we practice. It won't happen by just making one or two good decisions. It must become part of who we are. It must become a pattern that we can automatically call into action. Recently I've been doing a lot of reading and research around the impact of patterns in our lives. And our lives are full of patterns. Some are ingrained to protect us and to give our brain a rest, but others are there simply because we choose to do or think a certain way over and over again. That is why a liar or a cheat find it hard to change, because the patterns are ingrained into them from constant repetition. You tell a lie, then you build on it, and the lie grows, making it harder to tell the truth the next time. But worse than that, we've chosen to do something that causes our head, heart, and gut brains to be way out of sync. And the important thing to understand is that with hard work, we can change our patterns at any time because they are formed through decision and repetition. We develop integrity the same way. By doing the right thing over and over again, it becomes a part of who we are. It becomes our new autopilot. So how do we build integrity? Well, apart from doing the right thing over and over again and creating new patterns, I'm not entirely sure about the science behind it, as I stated earlier. And there is much debate about whether we learn it at home, at school, on TV, or from parents. Is it self-imposed or just shaped by the lessons of life? Well, I suggest that it's all of the above and more. In fact, experts tell us it's a combination of nature and nurture. So is a person's development predisposed in DNA, or is the majority of it influenced by life experiences and environment? There are great arguments on both sides. And what I do know is that whether it's nature or nurture or both, we do have the ability to choose if we live with integrity or not, right now. Because we were designed to think, make changes, and create new patterns. But to be able to do this, we must first ask ourselves this question, posed by Tony Schwartz, author of The Way We're Working Isn't Working, where he asks us this: is the life you're leading worth the price you're paying to lead it? That's a powerful quote. Is the life that you're leading worth the price you're paying to lead it? Some people and organisations have simply chosen chaos and feed those patterns every day, making the furrows even deeper. And it reflects in their systems, their culture, their attitude, etc. But it doesn't have to be that way. And so I'd like to give you 5 simple ways that we can turn our integrity factor around. But it'll take determination and practice to master them. The first way is start by being honest. It's not that difficult. No wonder our nation lacks integrity at the moment, with many of our politicians, our business leaders, they're just simply not honest. Their values and beliefs are often not congruent with what they say or with their actions. And if by example is how we learn, no wonder people are confused and think that if it's good enough for them, then it's good enough for me. So we need to start by being honest. And the first way to do this is start by being yourself. Take the mask off and begin to be you, because this is the beginning of integrity. Wouldn't it be great if honesty were the norm in our life? When writing my second book, Still Learning, I dared to dream of such a place, and I wrote a whole tongue-in-cheek chapter on commencing a political party called the Honesty Party. And the message I was trying to get across was that if we tell the truth, then integrity will have a place to live. Michael Hyatt from Vanderbilt University said, "The best way to deal in a transparent world is just to be transparent. Let your life be authentic and let people look in, because if they want to find out, they're going to find out." And so to me, it's given me a greater sense of accountability as a CEO. It's given me a greater opportunity to lead. You know, we put up so many walls to protect ourselves against what others might think, and without knowing it, actually foster the beginnings of a lack of integrity. You see, if your motives and intent are right, and you have treated others with respect, then it doesn't matter what people think, especially people without integrity. I've discovered that people will like you or not like you for many reasons, and in fact, the more integrity you display, the more people without it will buck against you. Be yourself, do what is right. It's the only way to build integrity. The second way is do the right thing and don't go for the popular vote. If you do the right thing, then you build a shield of integrity around you that deflects what people lacking integrity think. If you're being criticised for doing the right thing, then evaluate the criticism and quickly remove yourself from your critics. Their opinion just does not matter. I was recently told that a particular person didn't like me and didn't want anything to do with me or my business because they disagreed with something, can you believe it, that I said on stage 18 years ago. It was something that I still believe and would say again today. After a 10-second reflection on their comments, I remembered this person and my response was, "That's awesome. I don't want them to like me." You see, this person's acceptance came with so many demands and conditions, and for them to like me meant that I would have to compromise my own standards and integrity and agree with their views. I was not prepared to do that. And yet we do so often lower our standards to please. There are some people in your life who actually become your measuring stick, and you simply don't want them to like you because their approval is based on agreeing with their standards, and therefore the relationship will always be conditional. Let them go. When we are constantly walking on eggshells and compromising, it is just too hard to sustain. So remember, integrity is not measured by popularity. It is measured against doing the right thing. And a lack of integrity starts when we feel pressured to compromise our standards and do so even though we know it's not right. If you want to be liked all the time, then you're in for a disappointing, unproductive and compromising future. It's more important to do the right thing, not go for the popular vote. And this might mean that you need to change the people in your life. Never feel guilty when you have to step away from people in your life that lack integrity. We change, we grow, we dream, and we move on, not all in the same direction or at the same pace, but by the decisions we make. People who lack integrity fight vigorously against those that do not have it. Remove them. But at the same time, seek out people with integrity that you can bring into your life. Otherwise, you'll be very lonely. The third thing is embrace flexibility. Living and upholding your standards too tightly can also lack integrity in itself and simply become stubbornness. We must be flexible in a rapidly changing world. Think back 10 years and how your views have changed on a range of issues. That's not only okay, in fact, it's actually healthy. Yet I know people whose views have not moved in years, and they justify it by seeing the wrong in everything and everyone else. To live with integrity, we must constantly evaluate why we think what we think and why we believe what we believe. Things change, and so must we. In fact, admitting we need to change is the beginnings of humility and integrity. Our views can change, so why don't we be honest and just say, I have changed my mind? I would love to speak to our politicians about that. Wouldn't you? If we don't change and adjust, we fall into the trap of becoming a purist or a fundamentalist or a loose cannon. They all usually start out with the right motives, but become so locked in and obsessed in their own belief structures that they fail to see the changing world around them. It may not even be the belief that changes, but more about how it is adapted, accepted, and implemented in this brave new world. If we don't adapt, we run the risk of becoming narrow-minded and bitter, and don't we all know people like that? Unfortunately, I see this almost every day in leaders across the country. If you lack integrity, then others who do the same will be attracted to you like bees to honey. But eventually, ego will get in the way and no one will survive. The fourth thing to consider is take responsibility for yourself. Margot Cairns, great Australian author, said, "We can't control other people, we can only control 100% of our 50% of any relationship. But to do that, we must also be prepared to stand up for what our 50% represents, stand up for what is right." A few years back, someone looked at my financial books for the business and said, "Why are you so honest with your finances? You could be putting so much personal stuff through the business." My response was, "But that would be dishonest, wouldn't it?" And their response was, "But everyone does it." And how often do we hear this? That has never and will never be a good reason for doing the wrong thing. They didn't mean anything by it. They were just so used to seeing dodgy things being done that it was now their expected norm. So the choice was mine. And how you live your life is your choice. But when in doubt, ask yourself this question: what is my measuring stick? What everyone else is doing, or what I know is right? You see, people with integrity do not do what everyone does, or just like sheep, follow. They stand out from the crowd because they have built over time an internal integrity meter that overrides just being the same as everyone else. Only you can build integrity. It is a conscious decision to be more honest, more inclusive, to protect people's feelings and information with respect, and be happy that you are doing the right thing in every situation, no matter what temptations you might encounter. Earlier I said that people learn integrity by watching others live it. And what would others say about you right now? So let's take an integrity test, shall we? Firstly, imagine if what you decide on today became front page news tomorrow. Would you still make the same decisions? Imagine if everything you do and are right now, including social media, is on the front page tomorrow and everyone knows about all of your life and it is exposed in public. Would you be seen as a person with high integrity? Yes, people with integrity will make mistakes, but integrity is about intent, not about being perfect. But when they do make mistakes, they own those mistakes. They don't blame. No matter how a lack of integrity presents itself to you, it needs to be dealt with. I hate being manipulated or patronised more than anything else, and so integrity has helped me create the world's largest and most effective bullshit filter. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Michelle Obama said this: "We learned about honesty and integrity, that the truth matters, that you don't take shortcuts or play by your own set of rules, and success doesn't count unless you earn it fair and square." If living with integrity is about being honest, doing the right thing, leading by example and earning it fair and square, then corporations globally are in real trouble right now. Many prey on the weak and those that are struggling for their own gain. But how do people like this live with themselves? It's very simple. They lack integrity. But they've also created patterns that have built a shield around them. But it is a shield of selfishness, lack of care and greed. They're constantly watching their back and at the same time looking for their next victim. Again, make no mistake, they chose to behave this way. However, the system also allowed them to do so. When things are designed poorly, there will always be people out there trying to rip it off or take advantage. So in your business and personal life, design it so you and others are less inclined to be tempted. If it's wrong, it's wrong. Justification and blame will never change that fact. Own it and fix it and redesign it if you need. You know, corporate greed and fraud, or white-collar fraud, is one of the most prevalent crimes in our world today. We think that if we have a set of non-negotiables or a value statement that will be protected. It's a good start, but unless you live and enforce those values, then you actually lack integrity. Our policies, processes and systems must have integrity, and we must live them, or we give off mixed and disturbing messages. But it's our culture and our unwritten rules that helps integrity grow or go. Remember, the standard you walk past is the standard that you accept. Take control, know what you want, and live it. So companies, do you treat your people right? Do you pay their worth? Are you mean-spirited, or do you display a generous spirit? Are your expectations realistic? Do you create the best workplace culture you can? Do you invest in professional development for your team? Do you lead by example or give off mixed messages? And staff members, do you speak ill of your employer but still expect to get your pay packet? If so, you lack integrity. Do you take sick days when you don't have the need? Then you lack integrity. Do you take property home when it's not yours? That lacks integrity. Do you put little effort and time in where you should put more? That lacks integrity. These small things create guilt-free patterns that take hold and eventually define who we are. We have a right to expect better of both parties. We have a right to expect integrity. I was reading a HR blog just recently, and one of the contributors, an international director of HR, said, "What's all this emotional manipulation and rubbish about having integrity?" Initially, I thought it was just a catchy heading to get me in, and it did. But this guy was serious. So I read further. Not only did he not have integrity, he lacked insight and compassion, and yet he was in a field that was created for the care and betterment of others. You can't teach people integrity, but you should never lower your standards, and in fact you should expect better of people in positions of influence and authority. We must lead by example and with integrity, otherwise we are abusing our privilege. So with great integrity, I responded to his blog. You'll have to trust me that I was nice. I expected better, and just like you do with the people you deal with, and just like the people who deal with you do also. His response back was full of venom and judgment and only confirmed and magnified his total lack of integrity. Look, just because a person has a title doesn't mean they have integrity. And you have a right to expect better, but also the responsibility to be better. Corporate Australia, start making right decisions. Leaders, start leading with integrity. Team leaders, start treating your company and your leadership with respect. It is your integrity that you are responsible for, not theirs. So where do you rate on the integrity factor? And only you can answer this. What do you need to do to take 100% responsibility of your own integrity? Maybe you need to make things right. Maybe you need to be more honest and transparent. Who and what do you have to remove from your life? What patterns do you need to break and or reform? Do you need to change the way you do business? How will you create a new autopilot that goes straight to integrity? All challenging questions, but I'd like to finish on a very powerful quote that defines the ultimate goal of living a life full of integrity, and it is this. Perhaps the greatest truth is that integrity is not rewarded. The reward is in you. Every night you can lay your head on your pillow and say, I'm part of the solution, not the problem, and I am proud of what I said and what I did today. You've been listening to the Let's Go, Let's Grow podcast. I'm Des Penny, thanking you for listening, and I encourage you to sign up on your favourite podcast platform so that you can enjoy further episodes as they drop. If you've enjoyed this podcast, then feel free to leave a review on your chosen podcast app.